Have you ever realized how impossible it is to see yourself? One of the philosophers that I've studied equated it to a tooth, trying to somehow envision what it was like to be a tooth. And I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but after many years of reflection, it does to me. But I've used the sense of the impossibility of seeing myself to looking to, I don't know if you're familiar with human design, but there are a group of people that are born into a certain configuration, and they call it a reflector. And those people can basically live selflessly, and they're always in a state of reflecting the people around them back to the people. And they're basically a very sensitive type of person who really is open and scared in many cases. And so they're usually like highly conformed to what is helping everyone survive in the world. And so they're naturally very defensive of the conformity in the world until if they happen to live through a number of the instances that may bring them to their knees from time to time, they may never really wise up to that. And so they end up reflecting their entire life and always searching for some sense of identity and really getting lost in conforming to whatever groups or systems that happen to be working around them in their particular culture or environment. So I've ran into some of these reflectors and had relationships. And one particularly long, maybe 8, 9 year relationship with a reflector that was highly attracted to me. And I helped her raise her 3 girls and got to know her family system exceptionally well. And they all gave exceptional feedback to me as to how they viewed me. And in my, let's call it, journey through my complex PTSD, and I say that with a little uh, tongue in cheek, but let's just use that as a way to work through some framework here. But the view that they gave me of myself was absolutely incredible. And I've also used film work to capture myself, just like I'm doing right now. I'm speaking from my heart. I prepared a few notes and thoughts to try to organize this video into something that might be worth viewing. And I know there may only be, there may be a handful of views that this reaches, but that's really all I need because I don't think this message is necessarily broadly um, something that would help the general public. There may be a few people in the general public that eventually, might kind of stumble across something like this and pay attention long enough to reach some point in what I'm going to say that would be of meaning. But that's kind of like life. We just kind of roll through our days, and we do the best we can with intention and with our plan, and yet on things unfold as they may have been meant to unfold or not. But whatever happens, happens. And as you go across it, some things may come to mind and stir you into maybe a deeper discovery than you had anticipated when you woke up in the morning. So that's kind of how I roll. And I'm looking for others that might understand that and be down for that. But back to the impossibility of seeing yourself and using film to wire around that limitation, I can help you do that. I've been doing this with myself for years, and I've used it to help a number of other people see themselves, hear themselves, understand themselves better. Because a lot of times what we say goes into this, like let's say you're speaking to someone that you care about and giving them feedback, you may not really hear or understand exactly what you're saying to them. You may be reacting to them in ways that are patterned. They may be reaching back and coming from something that your mother or father said to you. You're reacting to that. Or maybe you've been trained. Maybe you've been in a classroom and you've been prepared by our education system to respond to someone in this particular moment. Or maybe this is the 15th time that you've had someone come to you and say this exact same thing. And so you have kind of a canned response, or that may be, perfect for that moment. It may be perfect to help this other person deal with whatever they're dealing with. I'm not the judge of that, but I'm just considering the different options or alternatives that may be out there for you. But I think it is important to note this as you deal with the impossibility of seeing and knowing who you are. And that's in gathering feedback from others, studying their biases and the way they are bending the truth for their survival. You have to keep this in mind. Everyone's that you encounter in your life, from your own child and parents, your family, your loved ones, people that you encounter at the grocery store, they're responding to something in you and around them, and maybe from something that is pulling them away from the reality of the moment that they've carried into the scene. And that's the beauty of life. That's what, if you wake up to this, that's what makes every moment that much more exciting, to realize the possibilities that are out there, especially as you encounter other people in your day-to-day, maybe unplanned course of action. So another way to gain an aspect into who you are and knowing more about yourself is looking into your astrology. And this is what I found fascinating about astrology. Now, a lot of people use astrology or have this notion that astrology is something that people have used to predict the future. And there's a lot of, there's a lot of biases and judgment around astrology being something that has evil spirits, and is also something that's used as a kind of a game at a cocktail party, or a just kind of something that's novel, that's just for entertainment purposes. And I view it as something that is potentially very valuable, because it's kind of like for me, it's like looking to see what the weather forecast is for the day. And although they may say it's going to rain possibly around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I've been around long enough to know that, if they say that the chances are 80% or 60%, that, who really knows? It may or may not, but there is a better than 50-50 chance that it's going to rain mid-afternoon. Nothing more than that. That doesn't mean that, I'm going to plan my life totally around that. But if I am making a trip and planning on, doing something at the lake on a boat or something, I might think twice about doing that in the afternoon when this rain is forecasted. But I'm not necessarily, banking and building expectations about, well, if it rains, it's going to change my life. And I think that's what a lot of people get confused with astrology predicting everything that's going to happen in their future. So I'm not looking at it like that. And I am looking at it as more of a general, this is what the energy this afternoon or next month or next year or 10 years from now might look like, because there are patterns that I've noticed repeating in life. As I study the earth as a engineer and geologist in the oil business, you can look back and you can see how nature has moved through and changed the earth, and how the earth's structures are so related to the weather and the climate and what was supported at different eras in our timeline, the timeline of the earth, reaching back, for hundreds of thousands, millions of years, the deeper you dig into the earth's crust. And that's another aspect that is fascinating. And to think that mankind has been here and that we've continued to, pass this DNA along from one generation to the next, and then all these legends and, the past that is kind of reformulated by, and passed down from generation to generation to generation. And to see how those stories have changed over the years is fascinating to me. So, astrology goes back, a long way. And, there's different parts of the sky, there's different planets, and I'm not going to try to give you an astrology lesson here. But one of the things that I found in my astrology was something that's commonly referred to as the finger of God. It's called a yod, Y-O-D, and I have two of them. And basically, they form like a triangle, and they're pointing towards something. And each side of the long end of the triangle is a quincux between planets that may reside at the end of this and one planet that is at the tip of this triangle. And so at the base of the triangle down here, there's a sextile, like a 60-degree angle between these planets. And the planet that's at the tip of the yod, or of the tip of the finger of God, is the really blind because of these 150-degree angles to the other planets down here at the base of the triangle. It's blind to those. And on mine, I have Jupiter in Aries in my 10th house at the apex of that yod. And this seems to be the most powerful yod in my life story. And I can tell you of how it has operated for me. And at the base of that yod, I have Pluto in Virgo in the third house of my chart. And then I also have, at the other side of that base, I have Saturn conjuncting or sitting right on top of Neptune in the fifth house of Scorpio. And so the third house is about communication and environment, siblings. And the fifth house is about creativity and your children and self-expression. And then the apex of that being in the 10th house, which also happens to be in Aries for me, with Jupiter at that apex. 10th house has to do with career and how the world sees you and your reputation in the world. And Jupiter is super expansive. And so these blind sides that I have, that explains a lot about the way that I operate, as my instrument is not built necessarily to even know what it's going to do next. And so I'm working from just, I'm trying to just channel everything about Mark and what I had kind of prepared and was led and feel passionate about communicating with whoever's watching right now. But it's something that I need to say. And I'm going to say it nonetheless, through thick or thin, whether I'm paid or not paid. And that's one of the factors that's really kind of mesmerized some people over my life, is that I'm going to do what I've got to do. And I fortunately have come to learn this at the center of this yod, down here at the base. I have what's called a boomerang. And that is right in the center of the base. And I've got Venus right there, and it's in Libra, and it's exactly opposite Jupiter. And that has to do with values from home and, a place that, and it's also my love of beauty and balance and fairness and justice, kind of beaming up, into the apex of this yod. So that's where my love of beauty and my a little bit, there's and Jupiter's expansive and very naive, but it's also a kind of guru energy. So that's where a lot of this material that I'm putting out here, that has just reached a few people, has that's where it's coming from. And so that yod explains a lot about how I operate. If you've got some questions, if I could help explain this, if you've ever looked at your astrology and noticed that you have a yod, that's a as they call it, it's the finger of God. A lot of people feel like it's a curse and that there's a fate to their life, and it can be a source of frustration and pain. But it can also be, with some time and understanding, it may be something that you learn to value and to use in your life to be a positive, and you really have no choice about it. It's kind of like, just a configuration that you have to learn to live with. Now, I happen to also have another yod that is formed, that has Saturn at the point of its apex. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it, but it happens to lie in my 8th house, which is also in Aquarius. So Aquarius is one of those coming, signs that we're coming into, the age of Aquarius. And Saturn is something that teaches a lot of lessons. And I think, I can see how that yod is also operated in my life, where there's been, kind of a ping pong match between the two yods, where one is helping me learn lessons from life about the self and the individual and the uniqueness that's associated with Aquarius. And that Saturn in there has taught me lots of things about, if you've ever looked at human design, it's all about trying to understand more about your uniqueness and how you may find the maybe some truths that you were brought into this world, put into your body, and into the circumstances that you landed in your life to make the most of. And by getting aligned with that, that's the best place for you to find success or to feel appreciated, to find satisfaction. So I hope that information about yods may be something that would be beneficial to you. Allowing uniqueness to squeeze out of the cracks is something that I like to help people with that are interested in that. It's often mislabeled as ugly, and you can find yourself, um, thriving on rejection, in this aspiration toward uniqueness. And that's an interesting dynamic, because if you've ever, known an artist, I'm an artist, and so, um, I've found myself from time to time trying to basically push people away and define myself by what I'm not. And if you understand what I'm talking about, then great, because that's kind of a dynamic of someone that is trying to really find themselves. And you may have to go through a lot of rejection and trying on a lot of different faces or ideas about yourself before you really do hone in on something that does feel really natural. And there's something that I have to admit, that there's many things that I've done that would have helped me get accepted into the world, but I realized at some point there was a food chain out there, and it was kind of like a feeling of being a coward if I wasn't true to myself and what I really felt called to do. And many times that was to walk down a different road than was being, opened up for me. That would have been the easy way to go. Sometimes there was another way that was more difficult that I chose. And a lot of times it's not the more noble. It may have been well, let's use an easy one. Maybe there was a beautiful, you know, um, woman or something that was, inviting me over this way, but there was someone that over here that I connected with in a more deep and heartfelt way that was, everyone would really question, why would Mark, choose someone like this? And I would go that way to explore that, because I wasn't going to let myself be dominated and controlled, by the easy and by the popular. I wanted to find out what the appeal was over here with this other choice that was really reaching out and calling me, or calling this inner exploration that I had going on. And that's often brought me into contact with some celebrities and famous people and helped me, kind of relate to them. And if you've listened to some of my other videos, I've been around a lot of powerful and rich, strong people in business and in film and entertainment. And, it's helped me get insights as to how they're operating. And, I really basically see a lot of them as being, people that do have some, a star may be a star and have had a lot of things, presented to them that a lot of us, looking in from the outside, would love to have things be that easy and that opulent, and to have that level of popularity and to have that level of influence. But a lot of times those people, because they've not really, gone through the life process, don't even really understand some of the power that they may have. and may actually feel very alone and trapped and as if they really can't even be themselves. So that can be a prison in and of itself. So that makes me, one of the points that's coming up here that I think is important, if you are pursuing your uniqueness, one of the powerful things to do is to basically, and don't take this literally, the AI bots would, ban this, but you have to basically slay or kill your heroes. And those things that you find yourself admiring in others, take note of that, honor it, accept it, examine it, because that may be a golden pathway that leads you to understanding yourself better and to really get to, what would really bring you satisfaction, happiness, success, whatever your ultimate purpose is in being here in this life may lie at the end of unpacking and taking the energy out of the external and helping you get into your own heart where you're able to work from that in your life rather than idolizing it in others and you sitting back and putting yourself into a powerless and helpless situation. So it's one thing to kind of discover your uniqueness, and it's another thing to learn how to operate out of it and then unlock your superpowers, so to speak. From time to time, I find myself being very sensitive to, I don't know, the moon, or there is, something that's bigger than me that seems to operate behind my scenes. And I try to do the best I can to stabilize, that thing. But occasionally there is something that comes up and just almost grabs me by the throat. And it's almost like I feel like I'm being strangled as an infant. And I'm not even sure I'm going to have the next breath. And I go into a panic for survival. And part of me wonders what I'm going to have to give up or sacrifice to get that next breath. Because our body wants to be here and survive innately. That's built into us. And then there's this other side that wants to control and try to make sure that that next moment is going to be safe and available. And we'll basically go into our primal toolbox, if you will, where anything is possible, where we could totally divorce ourselves from all the values and good things that we may have prepared ourselves for in life to survive that next moment. And you never really know what you're going to do until you've really faced those moments in your life that are that perilous. And you can sit here from, your place on your seat of watching YouTube videos and be an armchair quarterback, but until you really face that in reality, and not in a video game and not in pretend, but when the circumstances, when you've really got yourself at stake, that's when you can, as one of my, great masters and mentors told me, or character is revealed under stress. So you can take that information back and reflect on that also to discover more about who you really are and get some insights as to what's really making yourself tick. So although you may never get a full picture and a real, perfect view of who you are, the mirror is one thing. There's imperfections in that. And you're also measuring that mirror against what you saw on the other screen, which is usually, a movie screen or the TV, where all this super idealized narrative about ideal situations are being used for various reasons. But what happens with a lot of people is they're comparing the feedback that they're getting from their mirror, the reflectors in their life, from maybe their human design or astrology or whatever feedback loop they're getting. They're comparing that to these ideal circumstances that have been painted by movies or the news or media, or by friends that are putting these perfect faces on their lives to present themselves, to basically satisfy their ego and to feed their one-upmanship of it's so common in society. So that's a lot said, and I think those are all things that are factors that you have to consider if you are trying to find yourself, optimize your performance, do better, be more authentic, be a better husband, be a better friend, be a better lover, be a better citizen, be a better member of your community, or better at your profession, whatever that may be. But this exploration may totally blow your mind, as you may have left your whatever environment that you were raised in, and the conditioning that you had may be in great contrast to what you discover. These feedback loops are telling you about yourself, and learning to let go of that conditioning that is ingrained into your body and is part of your body is saying, you have to do this to survive. Another part is saying, no, you're really unique, and this is the way you should go. So there may be this real battle going on inside of yourself. And if you can be quiet, you may fall into the abyss. And the abyss can be a scary place. But you can survive it. And that may be just where you have to go to transcend, to transform yourself into who you really, really are meant to be, and where you can really find satisfaction and maybe wealth, or maybe wealth not in a material sense, but maybe a wealth of love and authentic relationships that will feel like something you've never known. All the best.